Welcome back. This is a series of how I bought a single family home, rehabbed it, and got it ready to rent after 14 days of rehab. This is part 2, where we look at the work that we did during the rehab. Stick around to the end, where I'll map out what we did, and you might pick up an idea or two of what you can do in your rehab project to help it go very quickly and as smoothly as possible. Tip number 1 to rehab quickly: ask the sellers if you can get started on some yard work before you even take possession of the home. That way, once you take possession, all your efforts are on the interior rehab and you can finish faster. Our very resourceful friend here used his work van and a rope to help bring that tree down away from the home. Also very resourceful to use a couple of jacks to get that old basketball hoop that was cut up and cemented into the ground out. So I worked on that area side of the driveway there and just cleaned it up, got the weeds out, got it ready for some mulch. Our little guy helped out, and that aspen tree in the back was a bit intimidating for him, but I'll tell you what, for a skinny dad with a chainsaw, it was no problem. Tip number 2 to rehab quickly: the first interior item of business is to repair any and all surfaces that will be painted over. It has to be done before painting, and painting is the other first major thing to check off the list. For us, that meant a couple of door casings and that spot on the wall. Our painters got to work right away, while a handyman and myself worked on some minor repairs and installations at the same time, like the shower door, and we learned that the shower head wasn't quite working as well as we hoped, so I went ahead and replaced that. I stayed in close communication with the painters and helped them with any part of the project they wanted me to. Painters like it, and they finish faster the less prep work they have to do. So allowing them to put cabinet doors up against a wall and prime them like they did there a second ago, or if they could paint in the kitchen without having to worry about the new countertops, that would have been great. I actually made the mistake and scheduled my countertop guy, I think on day 2 or 3. So that was a rookie mistake, did it too early, but everybody was understanding. Painters just put plastic over the new countertops and everything was good. These kitchen cabinets, we had to sand off the latex paint on all these cabinets and cabinet areas. It required a bit more effort than we thought. I myself was down there on the floor sanding that particular area. And we had to adjust the budget for painting up a little bit to account for the extra effort needed for all that sanding of the cabinets. But that's the primer that they're putting on, the bluish gray. Meanwhile, I got to work on some smaller items like putting in new locks and new doorknobs. I also went to Lowe's and picked up this single basin stainless steel sink, which I thought was a pretty good look, and installed that. I actually did a video on it. You can click in the upper right there to see that one. The laminate downstairs on that lower level, I just couldn't bring myself to keep it there, so I headed over to Costco, picked out some luxury vinyl plank flooring, and installed that right on top of the old laminate. In doing so, I had to remove this air duct register and saw how that needed to be cleaned, so hired a service to come and do that. Installing the LVP tight around that fireplace was a bit challenging. Took a little time, but I think it turned out pretty good. We agreed with the carpet installers that we would do a little bit of the prep work there to save both time and money. So we removed the carpet and the carpet pad, and it confirmed what we already knew, which was they were in pretty rough shape, and it was a good thing we were replacing them. After that, we mostly just had to clean, so I actually headed back home and had to go back to work, but my wife took over and knocked out probably 3 to 4 days of cleaning, along with a little bit of hired help, and got the place looking good and ready to move in. So that was quite a bit of work in 14 days. Not a lot of sleep during that time, but it was very satisfying to get it all done. And like I mentioned, I had to get back home and get back to my regular day job. So it actually all worked out in the end. Here is a little bit of a diagram or a map out of how we did this and an idea of what you might use in your project. So you want to start with the end in mind. This is where you want to get to, and as efficiently as you can. We figured about 14 days for the rehab. That was cutting it pretty close, but we did get it done. So think about if you're taking time off work or whatever time frame and time constraints you have, figure out how much time you're going to set aside for this rehab. Now you have to work back from the date that you take possession. So working back from that date, This is your time to prepare. You got to make all the phone calls, schedule the contractors, buy any supplies that you know you're going to need, tools, anything else. Get everything mapped out and figured out. Now during the rehab itself, here's a few things to keep in mind. As I mentioned in the video, you want to repair all the walls or anything that's going to be painted over. Get that done first. Then you're ready for number 2, which is to go ahead and paint everything. If you're hiring painters, while they're doing that, you can either help them where it makes sense, or you can get started on some smaller repairs. Ideally, once the painters are done, then any other larger repairs or replacements like appliances, countertops, vanities, things like that, that would be a good idea of what could come next. You want to ask your painters how long they estimate needing for the job, and once you know that, then you know when to schedule the countertops or the vanities or anyone else coming in for something a little bit larger. And then towards the end of it, that's when the flooring is going to come in. And once that's done, it's mostly just cleaning and you should be ready to go. Now, if you watch the video and you're looking at this list, you'll notice there's one thing that comes before that I didn't touch on yet. Remember what that was at the beginning of the video? That was yard work. So any landscaping, anything outside, potentially even before you take possession of the home. That way you maximize your time in the home to be focused on the inside of the home, and time and resources have already been spent ahead of time on the outside. So that's the formula we followed. It worked out pretty well for us. Go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you would do differently. Would you change the order of any of these? Is there anything else that's common in a rehab that I missed that maybe you would do or you think would be done by most people? Let me know, comment below, and I'll see you in the next video, which is part 3, the finished product.